I am anxious. What should I read? That's one of the questions I get asked most often, or at least some version of this. And every time somebody asks it, I find myself wanting to answer a slightly different question. Because the problem usually isn't finding a book. The problem is figuring out what your mind can actually tolerate right now. Anxiety changes the reading experience. I don't think we talk about that enough. When people imagine reading, they tend to imagine a calm person sitting comfortably with a book, absorbing words at a reasonable pace, and occasionally having intelligent thoughts. Anxiety has other plans. You read the same paragraph 4 times. You reach the bottom of the page and realize you've retained absolutely nothing. You keep checking how many pages are left. You put the book down, pick it up again, put it down again. At some point, you begin wondering whether you've forgotten how to read. You haven't. Your nervous system is just busy, very busy. And one of the biggest mistakes people make during anxious periods is assuming they should continue reading exactly the way they always have. I don't think that's true. When we have a cold, we don't usually get annoyed at ourselves for not running a marathon. Yet people will be in the middle of a genuinely difficult period psychologically and still expect themselves to read dense philosophical texts for 3 uninterrupted hours. It's an ambitious plan, not always a realistic one. One of the things bibliotherapy teaches us is that the right book depends partly on the reader, and the reader changes. What works during one season of life may be completely wrong during another. During anxious periods, I generally think less about literary prestige and more about emotional accessibility. In other words, can your mind enter the book? That matters. Because an unread masterpiece is currently less useful than a modest book you can actually engage with. I think many anxious readers give themselves unnecessary guilt about this. They stop reading difficult books for a while and immediately assume they've become intellectually inferior. You haven't, you're adapting. That's different. When anxiety is high, I often find myself recommending slower books, not necessarily simpler books, slow books. There is a difference. Books with room to breathe, books that are interested in observation rather than relentless plot, books that don't feel like they're dragging you behind them at 70 miles an hour. Essay collections can also be surprisingly useful, partly because they give you permission to stop. A novel asks for a commitment. An essay asks for 20 pages. Sometimes 20 pages is all a person can manage. That's fine. Poetry can work for similar reasons. Small doses. A page, a poem, a few lines. Not because poetry is magically therapeutic. I promise the poets would find that claim embarrassing. But because poetry often needs fragmented attention surprisingly well. And anxiety tends to fragment attention. One thing I would avoid, at least temporarily, is treating reading as another self-improvement project. Anxiety already creates enough pressure. You do not need a reading challenge. You do not need a productivity tracker. You do not need to optimize your relationship with literature. What you probably need is a book that feels possible. That's a much lower bar and honestly, much more useful one. I also think we underestimate the value of rereading during anxious periods. People often talk about rereading as though it is somehow less impressive than reading something new. I have never understood this. When anxiety is high, familiarity can be extraordinarily comforting. You already know what happens, you already trust the voice, your nervous system doesn't have to work quite so hard. Sometimes the right book is not the new book. Sometimes the right book is the one that has already helped before. the one with the creased spine, the one you've carried through 3 different apartments, the one that knows things about your life simply because it has been there for so much of it. And I think that counts. Actually, I think it counts for quite a lot. The larger point I'm trying to make is that bibliotherapy is rarely about finding the perfect book. It's about understanding the reader. And anxious readers need different things than they do when they are rested, grounded, and emotionally steady. That isn't weakness, it's context. The question isn't what should I read, the question is what kind of reading is possible for me right now. Those are very different questions. And usually the second one leads to much better answers.